What's up, guys? This is the Edge DFS. We're doing Saturday football here. Showdown, 49ers visiting the Cardinals. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. It's no secret what we've got going on here. Just a little bit of Cardinals fans going on here. So yes, we might be a little bit biased, but we want to win money. So stick with us for this one. We're breaking this down our full, hour plus, talking about every position. We're doing Fade of the Night, our Crown the Ras segment, and then we're going to build a lineup here with us. So, Ellie, what's going on, man? It's Christmas Eve. We're recording this. How are you? Cold as hell?
Yeah, dude. It's like 24 degrees and it's windy as fuck. So it definitely doesn't help anything.
Damn.
But we're expecting some pretty heavy snow all night. So I'm excited. I think this is the 14th time you've heard me say I'd like to have a white Christmas. We've never had one, so I think it'll be pretty fun. But yeah, man, just trying to get this show and go spend some time with the kids. And if you guys do hear any yelling and whatnot, children in the background, the kids are baking cookies for Santa. So bear with us as we deal with the family stuff.
Yeah, we're all sort of tucked away. I got my family here too. I'm tucked away in my office here doing this show real quick. So thanks for sticking with us, guys. Throw us a like if you don't mind. It's actually raining here in LA. It was 82 degrees 3 days ago. Now it's raining. Very strange. The weather's a little strange around here, amongst other things.
At least you know you're not going to have fires for a little bit then, right?
Yeah, exactly. At least for another week.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to get right into this here. So we're doing 49ers versus the Cardinals. So this is the 4:30 Eastern time game. So there's a what was it? Who's Tampa Bay versus Detroit is the first game. We are not doing that breakdown. I was going to do it, and I saw that Detroit was playing, and I have a short memory when it comes to Detroit. We did our Thanksgiving Day showdown with them, and I'm done with that team. I refuse to talk about them. I'm not playing the slate, that particular slate, and I'm not going to spend more than 1 minute thinking about that team. So we're going to focus on the 49ers and Cardinals, and then we'll do the late game as well. So that video should be coming out probably around the same time or a little bit later than this video will come out. We'll probably record that the day of on Saturday morning. So just so you guys know, obviously this is Christmas Eve. This is the 24th, 3 p.m. Pacific. So base that information off of the news. So we're not coming to you the day of, but we have a lot of information to talk about. We have injuries. We've got the Kittle news that just came out saying he's going to play. So that's kind of big. I'm glad that came out before this show because that changes sort of everything. So, Ellie, tell me about this matchup in general here. So the good news is for the Cardinals, this is a must win. This is literally a must win. If they lose this game, they're done. Their season's over. There's no, and if they win, they're going to have some help. They're going to have Chicago lose. So hopefully hopefully New Orleans wins on Christmas, which will make Green Bay have to win in order to get that bye in Week 17. So Green Bay will have something to play for, and they're playing the Bears. So a lot of things need to happen for the Cardinals to make the playoffs, but they can only really worry about this game. So I think they're going to come out, they're going to be prepared, they're going to be at home. I guess the 49ers are also at home, considering they've been playing at the stadium for a few weeks now. But look, the Cardinals have something to play for. The 49ers are devastated by injury once again. Nothing new. I think they're just playing for pride here. But, listening to Shanahan talk, a few times they asked him, are you guys going to try to evaluate players off the bench and blah, blah, blah. He's like, we don't have anybody off the bench to play. Like, we are barely putting together a team here. So they're going to use whoever they can. There's not going to be any weird, well, we want to get this player in, we want to get this player in. We might not have to worry about that. I think they're just trying to finish the season with a roster that's capable of actually playing. So that's something to take into account for a team that has nothing to play for. I think they're just going to, they're going to play the players they have. They don't really have any other options. There's no politics here at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game is going to be a little bit interesting given some of those remarks from Shanahan. It does give me a little bit of pause about how much or what I expect out of the 49ers offense from this game. But I think it's very important to keep in mind that this is very much a rivalry. This is very much a pride game. It is a division game. And I think we saw it the other night with Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. It really doesn't matter how depleted your team is. There is a sense of pride that comes in beating, there's a chance they could eliminate the Cardinals from the playoffs too if they win this game, or at least really good seeding, because it is going to be tight in the NFC over here. And I think the Niners understand that, right? And here's another thing. I get it. I get what he's saying. And I understand that he just needs people that can play football on Saturday. But I really don't think that they would risk Kittle if they weren't planning to play a little bit better than they normally would, right? I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. The guy already kind of struggles with injuries here and there because of his size and being such a talented tight end. But why would you risk a fucking franchise tight end, right? Like, you're talking about one of the best athletes in the game and who could end up being one of the best tight ends in NFL history. Probably is already.
Arguably number one, probably him and Kelsey are tied for 1A, 1B, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, 100%. And Kelsey, obviously, because he's been healthy this year, has the 1A, if not just the one spot right now. But I mean, if he makes it through a season and had a guy like Patrick Mahomes throwing it to him, right, I don't see that it would be much different than what Kelsey's doing. So again, I mean, you're talking about risking a guy because you don't have anybody else to play, and it's not like Ross Dwelley and Jordan Reed or anything to scoff at either. So I think Shanahan's right on that they're just trying to field the team, but I also don't think he's a good coach, man. He's going to get them a little fired up for this. And I don't want to underestimate the 49ers. And this is also some bias being a Cardinals fan. We've seen too many times the Cardinals struggle in games that they really should win, or in games that are important. We've also seen them play off their ass and just incredibly outside of their, what you're expecting from their ceiling performance. So, again, there's just stuff to keep in mind for this kind of a game.
Yeah. I mean, the Cardinals are a team that played down to their competition, last week against Philly. I know Jalen Hurts came in, but I don't think Philly's that good of a team. We made them look like a fucking great team. We made Jalen Hurts the fucking Rookie of the Year candidate in one fucking game. We have a tendency to allow these teams like, the Patriots. We lost to the Patriots. We let these teams back in the game because we make stupid ass mistakes. Cliff Kingsbury not calling games very well. If this team makes the playoffs, it would be a miracle, in my opinion, just because they just have not been playing well. We have the raw talent to be a playoff team. I think we need another year to really get things together and figure out, first of all, help Kingsbury out in some way. Have a senior coach on the staff that can help him with with situational football. When to go for it, when not to go for it, when to call a timeout, like very basic things. I think as a play caller, I think he has obviously a lot of potential. I'm not on the Cliff Kingsbury is on the hot seat sort of take yet. I'll give him another year because I think Cardinals are 8-6 and they have a chance at the playoffs. Last year, before we drafted Kyler Murray, we were still thinking about playing Josh Rosen. I mean, like very recently the Cardinals were the worst team in the NFL, and now we're talking about less than 2 seasons later they're in contention for the playoffs. You cannot put a coach on the hot seat at this point. But I think we have to think about these things because going against the 49ers is a divisional game. This game will be close, in my opinion, and there's a chance the Cardinals can lose this game. We've been watching Cardinals for our entire lives. Obviously, this year specifically, they just play down to their competition. They beat teams they beat teams they're not supposed to beat, and they lose to teams that they're supposed to absolutely blow out. If we look at the Vegas numbers here, obviously the Cardinals are favorites. They're minus 230 favorites with about a 70% win probability. It's a 48.5 total. And the Cardinals are favored by 5. So to me, I think Vegas kind of, with the spread, I think the spread is pretty accurate here because I think, you know, the 49ers can absolutely keep this a game. The only question mark is, can they actually field a team that has enough practice to just not completely screw things up, the 49ers wise. So, Ellie, tell me about this. What do you see? What jumps out to you here? Do the 49ers have a shot in this game?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think that the Niners have a shot. The problem that the Cardinals tend to struggle with right now is their defense is inconsistent. Over the past few weeks, though, they've seen a tremendous uptick in their pass rush. So that does play a factor into kind of the win probability theory here. I think because they've been doing so well in getting to the quarterback. They have 14 sacks in the last 2 games. So I mean, they're doing a great job up front, which is making a difference, I think, in their ability to win games. But again, their secondary isn't consistent. Pat Pete's not the same guy that he used to be. Still love the guy, but he's not that lockdown corner he was 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
And for a majority of his career.
Oh yeah.
So I think this is going to give Shanahan some opportunity to be a little creative on the offensive side of the ball, like he likes to do. And again, with George Kittle coming back, I'm kind of concerned that we may not have the ability to cover all of these guys. So I definitely think there is a way that the Niners can get there and keep this game competitive. But it's going to be up to the Cardinals defense and how well they play. And on the offensive side of the ball, I think it's important to pay attention to the Cardinals. They'll have a lot of drive killing penalties, like false starts and holding plays, in situations it just doesn't need to be. And back to K2's play calling, right? I mean, the amount of screens that we're running in on 1st and 10 and getting behind the sticks because of some of this play calling is really impacting their ability to get drives started.
Yeah.
So those are other things that I want to keep in mind with the 49ers defense, that, if they get some momentum going, they're not bad. I mean, they struggle, right? Because they're missing half their fucking squad. But
yeah.
Momentum is huge in these rivalry games. And I think if that's a situation that starts to creep up here, it's very possible that the Cardinals don't score more than 24, 25 points. And I think that's an important thing to consider when we're trying to roster some of these guys and we're building a specific way.
Yeah, you're right. I don't see them. Look, this game could go 2 ways. I think that this could be an absolute blowout. If the Cardinals come out with their mind right, they're not nervous, I think that the potential for a blowout is there. I'm more likely to believe that this game will be a little bit closer and it'll be under the total. That's just my take on it. I think, look, the Cardinals, they have a lot of pressure on them, and the 49ers have 0 pressure. They literally have no pressure on them. Now, do the 49ers, do their players give a shit at this point? I think they do. I think they have a great coach. I think they want to end the year. There's a reason why they're playing Kittle, like you said. I think they want to go out with some momentum here. They're not just giving up. If they were, they would have just called it a year for Kittle, saved him for next year. But I don't think they want to do that. So let's move over to the injuries here. There's a lot of injuries when it comes to San Francisco. Obviously, Kittle is questionable technically still, but as of now, we're seeing news that he will play. You got Deebo Samuel out for the year. Raheem Mostert is out for the year. Nick Mullins obviously is out for the year. He potentially has Tommy John surgery, is what they're saying. So it's a serious injury for him. So we're rocking, C.J. Beathard. Raheem Mostert's out. So it looks like we have almost a lock button play here with Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson's at $3,600, and he's the starting running back. He's going to get a majority of the touches, and we've seen his upside. We'll get into the running backs here, but with Raheem Mostert out, that leaves it open for Jeff Wilson, Tevin Coleman, McKinnon, and even a little Kyle Juszczyk. And anything can happen in this game. They literally have nothing. They have no reason to be safe. They can do whatever the hell they want. And then look, when it comes to Deebo Samuel, we know he's out for the year. So now you've got guys like Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne, Richie James, and that's pretty much it. Those are pretty much the only guys I'd consider. But Deebo being out, he's the number 1 guy. Now things go over to more to Ayuk and Kendrick Bourne, so they're priced up a little bit. And with Kittle playing now, I mean, that really opens things up here for not only Kittle, He might be on a little bit of a snap count. I don't know how they're going to handle that exactly. I don't think he's going to be out there the entire game, but I could be wrong. So that also opens things up for a slight distraction with the backup tight ends. You might be able to get a little bit of leverage there. So when it comes to Arizona side of the ball, we got Max Williams is questionable. Now there's some defensive injuries and things like that. We'll get into the horse's mouth segment here in a minute, but I think Dennis Gardeck was just placed on IR, so he's kind of that electric guy that can get some sacks for the Cardinals. He's out now. So look, Max Williams being questionable, we've seen him get a touchdown, get a couple big plays in these games. That opens things up for Dan Arnold, obviously, even Darrell Daniels. So that's just something to think about here. So what jumps out to you the most? I know we spent a minute just talking about the basics, but anything, deep dive into what some of these injuries mean for this game?
I guess the obvious one, the most important one, is George Kittle coming back. I think he absolutely is going to be on a snap count. It looks like it's going to be fairly minimal, but the count itself, not his playing time. But again, I'm of the mind I don't think that they're playing him if they're not playing him.
Yeah,
and there's too much opportunity cost to him getting hurt. So I just don't know if they're going to run him out there if he's not 100% healthy. So again, I'm hoping. As you'll find out here later on, I'm hoping that because of that QP tag that's next to his name and the fact that he's probably going to be announced to be on a snap count, which he tentatively has been announced already, that he's going to have some limited snaps. So I'm hoping that'll actually pull some ownership off of George Kittle. Because out of everybody on this slate, other than Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, there's not many people that that have the ability to just turn one reception, one play into something that's absolutely unrecoverable from in DFS.
Yeah.
And George Kittle, given his price, and hopefully a lower ownership, a suppressed ownership, I think he becomes a very interesting play. Now, on the other side of the ball, the other position, it's the same position, just on the Cardinals. If any one of these tight ends, because on lineup HQ, they all three have a Q tag next to them.
Yeah.
If any one of these tight ends is out, I think you boost the tight end position on the Cardinals. Kyler Murray seems to be getting a little bit more comfortable getting the tight ends involved, and Dan Arnold specifically has been getting some incredible opportunities up the field. So I think we'll continue to see a little bit of him getting involved in the offense. So I think that position becomes a lot more interesting if one of these players does end up sitting.
All right, so let's get into our horse's mouth segment where we hear from the coaches themselves, some of the players themselves, and we can sort of decipher what's really going on here.
I just want to know from the horse's mouth, what is the dealio?
So let's start with the 49ers and their injuries here.
For today, most likely not to practice. We got Deion Jordan, knee sprain, day-to-day.
This is obviously Kyle Shanahan.
Day-to-day. Tarvarius Moore, knee sprain, also day-to-day. Raheem Mostert with his high ankle sprain, he re-aggravated that. We're going to shut him down for these next two games for the rest of the season. Nick Mullins, elbow. Pretty serious injury. We'll let the swelling go down before we exactly decide what to do, but he'll be out also. Deebo Samuel, same thing, out for the year with the hamstring. Sherm had calf, has soreness after the game. We'll see how the week goes with him. Jimmy Ward's still in the protocol. Limited today will be Grossu with a knee sprain, Richie James with an ankle sprain. I think that's it. Go ahead, guys.
So Richie James is he's probable at this point. I think he's technically listed as questionable, but he was limited in practice. I think obviously he's leaning towards playing, which is kind of a big deal because there's just not a lot of receiver options on this team. He had mentioned Richard Sherman is not really doing too well. I don't know if he's going to play. Don't know how much that really affects things for us, but just something to keep an eye on. So let's hear about Kittle, just so we know exactly what he's saying here. If we want to maybe figure that maybe he might not get as much playing time as we thought.
What's the plan for George Kittle? Is there any chance that he'll play in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think he's got a chance this week. That was the point of getting him back at practice last week to see how he responded. I know he responded good from a medical standpoint and from him, so I'm looking to see how he is this week, and if he's good, I plan on him playing.
So this was actually from yesterday, I believe. So I think more recently he's come out. I couldn't find the audio anywhere, but he's come out obviously saying he's going to play. So let's hear about. So this 49ers running back situation is very interesting. You basically have 3, maybe 4 options here, but I'd say 3 solid options, especially considering their salary. So let's just hear about the running back situation.
And the plan with the running backs is, whoever's healthy is going to be up, and Raheem's down. I think Jeff got out of the game healthy enough. Tevin's getting better each week. Jet's been there for us every game. And got one more, right? Walter. Oh, yeah, and Walter's on COVID. I think he gets cleared that day. Odds of us playing him that day probably aren't too high.
So I don't know who the fuck Walter is, but I think he's not in the player pool, so it doesn't matter. When he said Jet, I'm pretty sure he was talking about Jerick McKinnon. So the first name he brought up was Jeff Wilson. Obviously, that he's going to be the guy. Jeff Wilson will be the guy. We've got Tevin Coleman as well. So he mentioned Tevin by name, and Jerick McKinnon as well as that. So you have 3 guys mentioned by name when it comes to the running backs here. So we'll see kind of how that goes. So let's also just bring up one other thing real quick. There's been, with DeAndre Hopkins, there's been some bullshit drama in the media. This is basically some fucking Allen Iverson shit.
I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice. Listen, we're talking about practice. Not a game. We're talking about practice.
So let's hear from Hop.
I heard a lot of negativity about me not practicing when I first came to Arizona. I don't watch like the Arizona local news and the channels and the sports station, but my grandfather, he's an avid listener to everything and every single one. I think if one of you guys say something bad about me, my grandfather, he's told me. So I seen all the blogs and all this stuff. I'm pretty sure some of you guys might have been in there agging it on, but I'm not gonna say any names. But for those people who don't understand football and who just watch, there's a reason that I play football and they watch. And there's a reason that, people are in positions for a reason.
In here, I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice.
So look, I don't know why they're even bringing this up. This has been a known thing. I don't get why this is a story in week 16. What the fuck week is this? Week 16? Why are we even talking about this right now? What is the big deal? They're trying to get clicks. I don't understand. I think it's great. I think it's going to just piss them off even more.
Yeah, I think it was Darren Urban. He's like, given his output, I'd be fine if he showed up with a fucking lawn chair and a pina colada.
Yes.
Who gives a shit if he shows up? Here's my thing. Arizona, don't fuck this up. Do not fuck this up. I don't give a shit what you think of DeAndre Hopkins. I don't care. First of all, you're wrong. Just if you're not thinking positive about DeAndre Hopkins, you're wrong for many reasons. He is a great person off the field. He is doing all kinds of things for charity, and he reminds me of Larry Fitzgerald, but just confident and actually calling people out on their bullshit. Larry's a gentle giant. DeAndre Hopkins,
he don't give a
he's
fuck.
Posterizing people. Yeah. Bro, he is straight up posterizing people. They shouldn't be running their mouth about it.
Look, we don't fuck this up, Arizona. We got this. We literally got this guy. We traded him for a couple raspberries and a Diet Coke.
Bro, this is the Herschel Walker trade of the fucking 21st century.
So don't mess this up.
I don't know what anybody wants from this.
Don't mess this up, guys.
Up and let the best wide receiver develop with one of the best wide receivers ever and a very young quarterback who's very talented. And just shut up.
Another thing, don't fuck with his grandpa either. His grandpa will snitch on you. He'll snitch on your ass for sure. All right, let's get right into this. All right, so we got quarterbacks here. Kyler Murray's at 12.8K. Fair price for him. I fully expected him to be over 13K. But, I think this is a pretty good price for him. CJ Beathard, 9,000. Excuse me. We're creeping into the. I bring this up as sort of my measuring stick every time here with the Ben DiNucci price tag of I think 8,400, and then we had what do we have? Ryan Finley at 8K. Was Ryan Finley at 8K?
Yeah,
Straight
I
up.
think so. I think
That's
it was
crazy.
8K. Yeah.
So look, Beathard, I feel like he's a little high priced here, but still, you have a quarterback at 9,000 going against a team that is notorious for making other opposing teams' quarterbacks look like Joe Montana out of nowhere. I can't even tell you how many times I've watched this team over the past, specifically year, maybe 2 years, where they will just make a below-average quarterback look like a Pro Bowler. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again. C.J. Beathard has nothing to play for here. Or he has a lot to play for. He's got no pressure, no expectations. If he comes out and has a couple good games to end the season, he could actually end up being the backup next year on this team. Nick Mullins had a game earlier against, I think it was the Eagles, where he got benched. Remember that showdown slate game? It was like week 4, week 3. Nick Mullins threw a couple interceptions. I think he threw a pick 6. He got benched in the 3rd or 4th quarter. C.J. Beathard came in and actually did okay. Then C.J. Beathard got to start the next game. So that's the last time we saw Beathard. He's only thrown for one touchdown this season. Nothing really too impressive. These numbers are not good, obviously. Most of which, the only real full game he got here, I believe, was Miami. And they lost that game. They got their ass kicked. That was week 5. He did come in against Philly and did okay, 14 of 19, 73% completion percentage. Look, this is the only reason why I would consider playing Beathard. Like, I didn't want to play Ryan Finley or Dalton. Like, guys like this, I just don't want to play. But Beathard going against the Cardinals is actually kind of appealing to me. Like, what are your thoughts on Beathard? I mean, we'll get into Kyler here in a minute, but like, what are your thoughts on Beathard? And like, is this the one guy we could fade from this team? Like, how do we handle this? There's a lot of value, so we don't necessarily need to fade him.
Yeah, currently I'm kind of of the mind to fade him. I do want to see if I can work out some value so that I can get him into more lineups. I'm just uncomfortable fading both quarterbacks, especially after the Ryan Finley experience the other night.
Yeah.
C.J. Beathard does have a little bit of rushing upside here too. He had 3 rushing touchdowns in 2017, 1 in 2018, and 2019, it doesn't look like he was alive in the league. So 2020, he hasn't done much. The issue that I have with CJ Beathard is it looks like his initial game or two, he comes out and does all right. But then opposing defenses seem to understand how to adapt to him being in the game. And it doesn't look like his career against Arizona has been all that great, except for 2017 when he threw for 294 yards, but still no touchdowns and an interception. Now, he did have a rushing touchdown in that game. But other than that, I mean, San Francisco versus Arizona in 2018, oh, no, never mind. 349 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks.
That was obviously,
and a rushing touchdown.
That team was not, that was one of the worst teams in the NFL 2018, that season. So maybe we just take that with a grain of salt. But we see that he has at least potential.
Yeah, I mean, even in the rematch later that season, he only had 190 yards and a touchdown. So, like, it looks like they kind of figured him out. I mean, here's the one thing that we alluded to in the beginning of the show. It really depends on the trend of this defensive line on the Cardinals side of the ball. If they can continue getting the quarterbacks like they have been, they're the only team. They're one of the few teams in NFL history who had 3 or 4 forced fumbles in a week and then came back and had 5 sacks and another 2 forced fumbles the consecutive week. So, I mean, Marcus Golden and Hassan Reddick, they're getting to quarterbacks and they're strip sacking. So I think that impacts my overall thought process when it comes to rostering CJ Beathard. But don't get me wrong. I mean, I fully anticipate that Kyle Shanahan's going to have some way to get him involved and get him going quick. And with George Kittle being back, it might just be throwing the ball directly at George Kittle the entire game. Yeah. So I am scared to roster him, but I'm also scared to not roster him. So I think I'm going to try and find a happy medium in my exposures there. And if we can find some other value on this slate, then I think I'm going to try and get a little bit more exposure to him. But as of right now, I'm leaning more towards the fade.
Yeah, I feel that. I think we have to wait until we get ownership. I feel like he's probably going to be in the flex, like 40, maybe 30 something percent, 35, 40%. That's just me guessing because he's not a sexy name. He's a third string quarterback, but his price is decent enough and his median projection will get him into, if you just blindly crunch, you're going to get him in a majority of your lineups because of his median projection and his price, his overall value. But you have to think deeper than that, based on your each lineup's story, each roster construction per lineup. You got to figure out if you want him in or not. I'm more likely to go right around the field. I don't think I want to get too much of him because I don't think he has too high of an upside. But you're talking about a guy who touches the ball every single down at that price. You gotta consider him. So let's talk about Kyler Murray here. We're not gonna get too deep into this. Spoiler alert, play Kyler Murray in every lineup. I mean, look, unless you're going with an onslaught like a 49ers, beating the shit out of the Cardinals onslaught, Kyler Murray is most likely going to end up in your optimal lineup. He has the highest ceiling on the slate almost with the rushing upside. He's throwing the ball 35 to 45 times a game. His rushing is there. Now look, remember when he hurt his shoulder? Was that against Seattle in that game? Remember he hurt his shoulder in like the first quarter? Was that against Seattle or New England? Do you remember that? Like, I'm pretty sure it was Seattle.
It was LA.
Oh, was it LA? I thought it was Seattle because from there on, like he had terrible games. I wouldn't call him terrible, but you see, 20 fantasy points, 8 fantasy points, 18 fantasy points. Slowly he's been getting better. You saw against the Giants, he was a little bit more comfortable with his accuracy. And then obviously against Philly, he feels like he's back. And there was not nearly as many designed runs for him in those games. So if you're looking,
it was Seattle. You were right.
Seattle, yeah. So in that game, it was still a close enough game. We only lost that by a touchdown. So if you look at his attempts, he was sticking. Those 3 games where he was hurt here. So we're looking at like five attempts, no touchdowns. Just wasn't getting design runs there. Then he started. I feel like he started to feel a lot better, and they started to feel more comfortable getting him out and running. You're talking about your franchise quarterback. You don't want to fuck him up in year 2. Yeah, like you have running backs for a reason. But if he's feeling good enough, this team is so dynamic when it comes to that. I mean, look at his pass yards in those games as well. You got 269, 170, 173, along with 5 carries. Then against the Giants, it jumps up to 13 carries and 8 carries and a touchdown. And obviously 406 passing yards last week. So I don't know that he can get to 400 passing yards and 4 total touchdowns in this game. There's a chance. That's why I think you have to put him in every lineup. Because just use him as your core because he has the potential. I think he has the highest probability to being the highest scoring player on this slate, in my opinion. It's the safest play. And I know he's going to be the highest owned. So is there anything really to talk about with Kyler Murray? And can you get him at captain on this particular slate? Typically, we'd probably say no because of his ownership's probably going to be in the 20-25% at captain. I feel like you could probably maybe be different enough, but I think Kyler's still going to be too high owned, and his price is going to be a little too high.
Full disclosure, I probably will have a couple lines with him at captain. And that'll probably mean that I have to, fade some pretty big names. I mean, or at least I don't know if I would fade DeAndre Hopkins. I would probably intentionally build a Murray Hop stack and then see what I can do to get different from there. And the main reason being is he looked really good last week. He obviously had that one terrible interception.
But that was terrible.
Look, man, I think he understands that he has an opportunity to carry a lot of momentum into the playoffs. This could be an opportunity for him to kind of have a statement game and really dictate what this team is going to be. I mean, who do they play next or the week after? Fucking Seattle. Like, have we played Seattle twice this year? Yeah, we have.
Yeah, it's going to be.
So LA, that's right.
LA, yeah, it's going to be a good game.
Right. So it's going to be a good game, and that could be the final spot for the playoffs right there. So I think I'm scared to not have at least one lineup with captain Kyler Murray. But here's the thing. He will be in every single lineup that I have at the flex, bare minimum. He has too much rushing upside. And given last week's 400 yards, I think he's healthy. I think his shoulder was bothering him. And honestly, I think he's kind of fed up with some of K2's play calling. I think he doesn't want to kick these bullshit field goals anymore. He wants to go out there, and when they're at the 35-yard line on 4th and 3, he's going to start going for it, right? Yeah. I think he's going to kind of step into a more of a leadership role and start taking over some of this offense here down the stretch. And that connection that he made last week with DeAndre Hopkins, they seem to really get in a rhythm. So that really scares me from just a roster construction standpoint this week, because I don't know. Normally I would be okay getting one or the other, just because DeAndre Hopkins, they haven't been consistently hitting each other. But I think all three of them, K2, K1, and D-Hop, all realize that if they get him involved early, there's really nobody on the field that can stop him. I mean, he's dominant on these out routes, like these 10-yard out routes. I literally see him catch the ball every time. And the corner is just there, sitting there in frustration, like, what am I supposed to do? Yeah. So I think they figured it out, man. I really think they figured it out. And I fully anticipate Kyler Murray to hit 350, 3 touchdowns, and probably a rushing touchdown in this game.
There's no reason Hopkins shouldn't have like 15 targets a game. And he's likely to catch at least 7 to 8 of those minimum.
Bro, like, you can't fucking stop him. Like, he's made it clear you can't stop him with 2 people draped in coverage. It's not like he's out there putting up stats against padded defenses and non-coverage. He's getting double, triple coverage and making it look easy. So I don't know how you don't throw it to him. It's like the old Raiders days when Jamarcus Russell was sucking dick. Like, the guy could still throw 80 yards. And you had Randy Moss. Like, at what point do you just not treat the shit like Madden? Like, Randy Moss is going to moss everybody, and Jamarcus Russell is going to throw it further. So I think.
Are you comparing Kyler Murray to Jamarcus Russell here?
No, absolutely not. Kyler Murray's good.
All right, let's move on, because we're gonna.
This is going to be a 17-hour show.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna move on to the running backs here. There's not a lot to talk about, in my opinion. Chase Edmonds is projected for slightly more points. He's at 5,600. Technically, he was questionable. I think he's still technically questionable, but he was limited in practice yesterday. So I think that sort of transitions him into probable. He's most likely going to play. I looked it up. I didn't really see any information about him being really hurt. Chase Edmonds at 5,600 is a great option, obviously. Kenyon Drake at 9,200. I just don't know how you get there. He has the opportunity to score 2 touchdowns in every game because he is kind of the number one guy. But look, we're talking about pretty much a 50-50 split here. I think Drake is maybe 55 to, it's a 55 to 45 split mostly, but like that's close enough for it to be, half and half. And with Edmonds being, 3,600 less, am I doing the math on that right? That's just such a big gap in salary that there's really no reason to not play Chase Edmonds, even if he's not getting as many snaps. He's running more routes. He's getting targeted when it comes to that. And look, Kenyon Drake near the goal line, he could get vultured from anybody. He could get vultured from most likely Kyler, and he can get vultured from Chase Edmonds on 3rd down, or even on, even if they bring Chase Edmonds in on 2nd down and shotgun. So that's what worries me about Drake. He's very touchdown dependent. He's not going to have these big 150-yard rushing games. He's most likely going to be, let's look at some of his history here. He's most likely going to be in that under 100-yard range, but see, those touchdowns really are what propel him into a good fantasy game. So he's gotten some decent touchdown output this year, and if he ends up with 50 yards and a touchdown and a couple receptions, he could end up in the optimal. But at 9,200, I'd rather go with Brandon Ayuk on the other side, or I'd rather just go with Beathard. There's other players. I think you're gonna have to get Kyler. I think you're gonna have to get D-Hop, and then run it back with one of the most expensive guys on the other side of the ball. So that means I just think Drake just sort of kind of gets forgotten about for me. And I think the field is going to be under on him. So look, if the field comes in super low on him, if he's at like under 20% ownership, then you got to consider jamming him into a lot of lineups. It's all about the ownership in this particular case, because I don't like Drake necessarily at that price tag. But if he's super low owned, his ceiling is high enough that he's the starting running back on a team that's favored by 5 points. If his ownership's under 20%, I'd consider him in the captain. I'd consider him in the flex. But you just got to wait on ownership. So talk to me quickly, what do you think about Edmonds versus Drake? It's obvious Edmonds is going to be higher owned because of his price, right?
Yeah, and I think it's justified. He's getting decent attempts. He's getting decent targets, and like you said, it's a 50-50 split. He's gonna get these short dump off passes, and the whole purpose of getting him the ball is so that you can try and get him loose in the open field. So at his price, I think he's a great play, and I think he kind of frees up some of your builds a little bit more here. So I'm probably going to have a pretty healthy exposure, kind of given, unless he comes in like higher than 60% for some reason. But if he stays around 40, 45, where he probably should be, I'll have a pretty healthy exposure to him. Kenyon Drake, I'm in the same boat with you. I don't necessarily want to pay for him at this point. I think he's a viable play, right? I mean, his first game as a Cardinal was against the 49ers, and that was the one he had like 3 rushing touchdowns and 180 yards. So, I mean, it's obviously he has the potential of putting up those kinds of numbers. But given the price, I'd rather just try and get to my core, right? Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, and George Kittle. Those are really guys I'm going to be trying to build around. So I don't think I'm going to get too much of Drake.
This could be an opportunity where you could pay up to be different with him, because I think his ownership is going to be low. Just out of the box, not seeing that ownership, I'm more likely to fade him. But just keep an eye on that, because it all depends on where that ownership comes in. I know we keep bringing that up, but it's not just about salary. It's you really want to focus on where the rest of the field's going to be. So let's move over to San Francisco. The San Francisco 49ers running backs here. You got Jeff Wilson, grossly mispriced at $3,600. He's the starting running back on this team. We've seen him absolutely go ham in the past. Jeff Wilson at $3,600, maybe one of the... I don't know if I like using the word lock ever in Showdown, but he's the closest thing to a lock you could probably have at that price tag. And Tevin Coleman at $600. We've seen Tevin Coleman score 4 touchdowns in a game. Now that's not this is a different Tevin Coleman, but look, they don't have a lot of options here. You got Jerick McKinnon at $2,400. I'm more likely to be not as high on him, because I think he's going to get third running back snaps. He's probably going to be in the 20% range. I would assume, depending on, it's all, the wild card is Tevin Coleman. Now, I don't know if you can read into it too much, but Shanahan did mention Jeff Wilson, Tevin Coleman, then Jerick McKinnon. So I don't know if that is if I'm just reading into it too much, if that's in his head, the actual hierarchy. But to me, just based on projections wise, that's how it is. How is Jeff Wilson not going to be like? Is there a way he's not like 60+% owned? Like, are there enough casual players that maybe they just don't realize that Jeff Wilson's the starting running back and he's a little under owned? Like, how does that work out? And then Tevin Coleman at $600. All the dude needs 10 yards and a touchdown to really pay off his salary.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where Jeff Wilson lands at, because at $3,600, I feel like he's grossly underpriced here, especially with Raheem Mostert being done for the rest of the season. So I'm with you. I honestly don't really give a shit what his ownership is unless it's higher than like 80%. If it's 70 or below, then I have no problem having as much exposure to him as I possibly can. This isn't necessarily a good Cardinals rush defense, so I do think that they're going to give up opportunities to run the ball, or to pick up some chunk plays on the ground. So I love Jeff Wilson. As far as these other guys go, Jerick McKinnon,
Can I bring up something real quick? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's got 7 total touchdowns, 6 rushing, 1 receiving in 9 total games played this year. So, yeah. I mean, when he gets those number 1 running back spots, and sometimes he's not getting those. You'll see in some of these games he's getting three carries or 4 carries, but still he's still getting there more often than not.
Can you see? Do you have red zone attempts on there?
I don't. Let me pull up a Gridiron IQ here for Jeff Wilson. His end zone target share received is at 10%, which is pretty high. It's hard to tell. Rushing attempts inside the 10-yard line, percentage of team rush attempts when operating inside the 10-yard line. On the season, he's at 41%.
Yeah, that's enough for
that's all we wanted. That's all we need to know. Yeah, exactly.
Last week he had 5 red zone rushing attempts. Week before 3. The week before that 3. So I mean, and he's getting red zone targets. I don't give a shit. Like Tevin Coleman and Jerick McKinnon, they can get him down the field. But if he's at rushes for 12 yards and 2 touchdowns, he's in the optimal at his $3,600 price tag.
And he's getting getting 3, 4, and 5 targets. Like he's getting some reception opportunities. Nothing to write home about, but he's getting those opportunities. And you know, Tevin Coleman's not going to get those opportunities. So is Jerick McKinnon is Jeff Wilson and Tevin Coleman, are they splitting those first through third down opportunities? Jerick McKinnon comes in on third down. Is that what you see happening?
No, I don't think so. I think Jeff Wilson is going to get the lion's share of everything in this game. I'm just saying that at his price tag, just his red zone attempts enough. 3,600 is what we're going to see kickers priced at, right? So, yeah. I mean, he's essentially a touchdown scoring kicker, right? He's the guy who's going to get in the 5-yard line and get all the attempts. So, yeah, he might miss it, but if he scores once or twice, that's 12 points. So, I mean, that's really my point. I don't think Jerick McKinnon and Tevin Coleman are really going to get involved all that much. I don't think that they've been consistent this year. They're going to obviously have their rotation going, but I think they really like Jeff Wilson. Continue to kind of push with him.
I'm more likely to think that Coleman could be a trap because of his price, because I think that Coleman plays the same role as Wilson. I think Coleman, if anybody, could be the one that gets phased out. And if they're down by 14 points in the third quarter, McKinnon might get those extra targets out of the backfield you're looking for. So I'm actually going to
look at your boy Kyle, bro. Honestly, that's a guy that I'm actually kind of interested in.
At $1,200, he's going to be 5% or less owned. No one's going to even have him in their fucking player pool. And this is the kind of situation where you get a little naked boot on the 5-yard line for a touchdown for Kyle. Or a goal line rush from him. Like this is all 4 of these guys are in play.
He's getting red zone targets. He's getting red zone rushing attempts, and he's some fucking random dude. He's a fullback, right? So I mean, you're exactly right. He's not going to be owned at all. And honestly, I think some of these other guys are going to be a little bit more owned simply because everybody knows who Tevin Coleman is.
Yeah,
everybody knows who he was when he was in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Same with Jerick McKinnon, right? We all know who he was when he was backing up whomever in Minnesota. So I think Kyle's going to get lost in everything. I think this is an interesting position. Granted, I don't know how much I'm going to get to these guys. We'll see a little bit when we start building what the need is.
I personally think you're going to have to get one for sure. That's not a crazy statement. Possibly 2 of these guys in every one of your lineups, because I think this is the situation for Beathard to really take some pressure off of him, even if it's just dumping it off to McKinnon or Wilson. But I think Kyle Juszczyk is the kind of guy that can win someone $1 million on this slate. I don't know if there's a milli maker for this particular showdown, but whatever the top prize is, I think Kyle Juszczyk at probably less than 5% total owned can be the guy that can take you to a champion or to a first place. So, look, this is something serious to decode here, but I think you got to consider potentially getting 2 of these guys in your lineup, at least Jeff Wilson in every lineup. All right, let's move over to the wide receiver side of things here for the 49ers. We got Brandon Ayuk at 10K flat, Kendrick Bourne 7,400. Richie James should play. He is on the injury report, so keep an eye on that. He's at 2,600, and River Craycraft at 200. I don't even think we really need to mention him unless Richie James doesn't play. To me, okay. So who's your favorite player here? I mean, is Brandon Ayuk really worth $10,000?
I'll have a little bit of exposure to him. I just don't. Honestly, I think there's going to be a lot of recency bias here. We haven't seen Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle together with CJ Beathard on the field.
I mean, look at that. Look at the last. You're right. I mean, look, since week 7, he has not had a bad game.
Right. Like I think people are going to love him. I think people are going to try and jam him in. But look, I just I don't know that he's going to continue to see that volume with George Kittle back.
And with Beathard, we don't know. Brandon Ayuk was not when Beathard played. So Beathard played week 3 and 4. I know it's a small sample size here. Actually, he played week 4 and 5. So he had 5 targets and 6 targets. He had 6 targets in the game that Beathard actually started. So look, yeah, there's opportunity for Ayuk, but all these great games came with Nick Mullins. Now, how big of a difference is that going to be? Is that more of a game flow thing? I just don't know. There's a lot up in the air. With Kendrick Bourne at 7,400, Kendrick Bourne actually caught a touchdown pass from him. Basically, Beathard's only touchdown pass this year was to Kendrick Bourne. Now, am I reading into that a little too much? Yeah, probably. But it's worth mentioning that Kendrick Bourne is...
Did you see that touchdown?
The Kendrick Bourne one?
Yeah.
Against Miami? And I don't remember. That feels like decades ago. What was it? Was it a badass play or what?
Oh, never mind, bro. But did you catch Kendrick Bourne's touchdown on Sunday though?
Oh no, I didn't.
Bro, he had like a 50-yard Hail Mary.
So there you go. So Kendrick Bourne at 7,400, we all know what he can do. It just depends on if Beathard can get him the damn ball, and I think he can. You got Richie James at 2,600, who's a good option. We saw Richie James absolutely go ham against Green Bay when there was no other players on his team. Do you remember that? That he won. Yeah. He was like 2% owned. He was questionable going up into lock, and then they announced him in, and he straight up scored 36 fantasy points against Green Bay. So look, who's your favorite player here? Are you going to be above or below the field on Ayuk?
Probably below the field on Ayuk. I like Kendrick Bourne, and I like Richie James. Richie James mostly because of the price tag. I think he might get some involvement. But again, I'm not going to get too crazy in the wide receiver pool. I think George Kittle being back is going to impact too much here. At the end of the day, you can have Brandon Ayuk on your team, but I'd rather just start George Kittle. He's fucking George Kittle.
Yeah.
That's really my analysis for the wide receiver group.
And I think a lot of people are going to agree with you on that. So I think the ownership on Bourne and James is going to be lower than it should be because there's value on the running back side. There's George Kittle coming back. I think Kendrick Bourne and Richie James just get forgotten about because there's other value there. Like I don't mind getting Richie James over Jeff Wilson in his few lineups because it's just a nice pivot.
And to be honest, I think Kendrick Bourne is a nice pivot off of George Kittle as well.
Yeah.
I just think for Brandon Ayuk, if we're starting to get into that 10K range, I'm going to have a little bit of exposure just to the amount of sheer volume he's been getting recently, right?
Yeah.
But at 10K, I mean, I think I might rather just go Beathard if I think he's going to get there, save 1,000 and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just not. I'm not as high, I think, as the field will be on Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
I'm also very critical of Arizona State players, right? He was a wide receiver at Arizona State, right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
So, like, I really have never been a huge fan of Arizona State football.
N'Keal Harry.
Yeah, no, I know. Look, he's better than N'Keal Harry right now, but they Arizona sports just has let me down so many times to really believe in some of these guys for too long. And Brandon Ayuk, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, man. I hope you best
break the curse
in your endeavors. Yeah, break the curse. Make us proud.
All right, let's move over to the Arizona side of things here. You got DeAndre Hopkins at 11.6K. Just lock his ass in. That's my opinion on it. Find a way to pair him and Kyler. That's going to be the highest ceiling, highest correlation. I know that doesn't always matter on Showdown, but this will. There's an easy way for him to get 11 receptions, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think that can happen in this game. Christian Kirk at 6,600. I think he's going to be absolutely forgotten about with all the value. He's at 6,600. He's right in the middle. I bet you he'll be 25% or less owned, maybe 20% owned. And so he's an option. If you go Kyler, D-Hop, and Kirk, Kyler, D-Hop, and Keyshawn Johnson's at 800. He's established himself as the 3rd/4th option here. Larry Fitz scored a touchdown last week. Good for him. He's still a important player on this team at 5,000. I think is way too high of a price, but I think there's a range of outcomes where he can score you 14 fantasy points without even scoring a touchdown. We saw it maybe a few months ago it was probably one of these showdown slates with the Cardinals where he didn't score a touchdown and he got you 14 fantasy points and he was in the optimal. So look, keep an eye on Larry, but at 5,000, I think it's just a little too expensive for him. I'd rather just go up to Christian Kirk because you have a higher ceiling. It's, obviously in tournaments, because that's what we're talking about here is tournaments. And Keyshawn is fully taken over for our boy. Where is he at here? Let me pull him up.
Andy Isabella. He's not even in the.
The dude's not even projected anymore. Like Andy Isabella is done. He's a bust. Is he not? Come on. Keyshawn Johnson was a 5th or 6th round pick or something like that?
No, he's formally taken over the 4 wide receiver spot. It's
official. You would think that the coaching staff you would think that they would feel pressure to get Isabella in the game more because they basically traded Isabella for a top 3 overall pick or top 5, whatever the hell Josh Rosen was. They traded Josh Rosen for Isabella. That was the pick they got. You would think that they would feel a little bit of pressure to get Isabella in the game, but they don't give a fuck. They're just going to put Keyshawn Johnson in. So that just shows that Keyshawn is stepping up enough that he's showing that he could be the actual future number 3 wide receiver on this team potentially.
Yeah, man. I think he has some opportunity at $800, right? And he gives you a little bit of unique builds that you can start jamming in some of these higher priced players you wouldn't normally be able to get to. Him taking over that role. The only thing that concerns me is kind of the emergence of the tight end position, right? You're starting to get deeper targets to even fucking Max Williams and some of these guys on the tight end side. Yeah. So that's the only thing that's going to concern me. But again, Keyshawn Johnson at 800. If he puts out literally any of that performance right there, excluding the 1 point, so half of that performance, right? Those are scores that could end up in the optimal if you need to. If Kyler Murray's the captain, Keyshawn Johnson is not a terrible play because I expect him to come under 10% owned, probably under 5%. So then you're really punting that one position. If he gets 3 receptions for 45 yards, you might have enough to get the optimal and be unique with Kyler.
And I think Keyshawn has the opportunity for a breakout game. It's going to happen one of these weeks. I just think we got to figure out when, and this could be the week. I think his ownership will be under 10%, and if you want to get Kyler in the captain, throwing Keyshawn in the flex is going to make you pretty unique. If you throw another low-owned guy in there like Kyle Juszczyk or whatever, you're punting on 2 positions, but these are pretty good punts. These aren't terrible plays here.
Now, for Larry Fitzgerald, I think he's in play. The interesting thing to me here is I think I might just pay up, honestly, $600 and just get more Chase Edmonds in my lineups. Fitz is kind of seeing an upshoot in overall targets, though, which is kind of interesting. Not weeks, the last 2 weeks, right? 4-3, but he did get the touchdown. But that week with 10,
important
5,
targets,
5,
I feel
8,
like.
Right. Yeah. He's getting up there again, and I think he's kind of starting to feel a little bit more comfortable in the offense. And remember, week 14 was his return back from COVID, so it's not like I was expecting him to go out and have 10 targets like he did against Seattle. So he's interesting, but again, I think I'd rather just get up to Chase Edmonds. Chase has a little bit more bigger play upside. Yeah. So that'll be where I lean there. And then Christian Kirk, I love him at 6,600. He might actually even make for a unique captain play.
He's great captain play. Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't gone off in a while, and look at that. But if you scroll down there and you look at some of the beginning of the season output, he had those 3 weeks where he had, he was crushing it 2, 2, and 1 as far as touchdowns go. Yeah. So again, I anticipate them to try and open up the offense a little bit. Let's get some momentum going into the playoffs, and going into that Rams game against a really talented defense again, and see if you can't get Christian Kirk open up the field. So I think he's a viable play at 6,600. But again, I don't think you're doing anything wrong paying down from here and going to Chase Edmonds, who's essentially the same player but at running back. Now he's not gonna get a deep go route, but I mean at the same time he's going to get a lot of targets. He's going to get involved in the run game, and he's going to get dump off passes in the flat down in the red zone. So I think Christian Kirk's definitely in play. DeAndre Hopkins, just lock him in if you can.
So to me, I like what you said. I think Kirk is not a very good flex play. He has upside in the flex, but I would just rather play him at captain. I think you're getting the ownership is going to be so low, and his price tag allows you to be so unique. Or I'm sorry, it allows you to be unique with the rest of your lineup because of his ownership. But his price tag allows you to get Kyler, Hopkins, Ayuk. It allows you to get a lot of these good players in the flex, and I think that his range of outcomes is typically there's not a lot of middle ground with him. He's either he's got 2 touchdowns and a bomb, or he's barely getting 4 or 5 fantasy points. So to me, I'd rather just wait till, hoping that this is the game he goes off and put him in the captain. And then I like Chase Edmonds more in the flex than in the captain, because I think Chase Edmonds has a lower floor because just the running backs just don't get as much usage in this offense. So let's move over to tight ends for the Cardinals. You've got Dan Arnold at 4,400, great option. Always an option for a touchdown. It doesn't have a very high ceiling, but he still can go off with a touchdown and maybe 50 plus yards. Max Williams has a lower ceiling, but he at 2,000 can get you a touchdown or 2 in a game. Darrell Daniels is going to be the forgotten about guy at $400. Still think he's a good play. I think all 3 of these guys are good options. I think we're just going to start to run out of room here because we have so many players we like. I think you start to forget about the tight end position for the Cardinals because they're just not very sexy names. But the pricing is really good on these guys. Who's your favorite pick here? And can you get 2 of these guys in the lineup together? Probably not. I think that's reaching.
Yeah, my favorite pick is going to be Dan Arnold. Obviously, if one of these guys are out, I think it gives a boost to the other positions. But right now, Dan Arnold's kind of the guy if all 3 are healthy. Max Williams is interesting at 2K. I think all 3 are in play. I just don't know if you need to reach quite down that low. I mean, again, we already saw we have guys like 3,600 fucking running back dude. I think there's a way to kind of get in some more consistent players at similar pricing so that you're not reaching as far as Max Williams, because you're hoping that Max Williams or Daniels catches a touchdown pass like we are for a lot of these other positions, but I just don't know if it's going to get there kind of with the chemistry that Kyler's been feeling with Dan Arnold and Kyler and the way the offense is running. I'm just not sure those 2 guys get there, but Dan Arnold's awesome to me. I think he's very much in play. And he's a great salary saver on the board too. But again, $3,600 Jeff Wilson is just I still think that's more valuable play over a 4,400 Dan Arnold. So if I need to jam him in, I will. And I would put him as my first guy.
So Max Williams, to me, if Max Williams is under 5% total owned, then yes, I like him. But I think he's just his ceiling's so low. He's only really got like a 9-point upside, and at that price tag, there's better options right around him. So I'm not loving Max Williams because he is hurt, and if he does play, maybe he's just not going to be as useful as he would typically. Darrell Daniels, same situation. If he's 5% or less, I'll take a stab on. All right, let's move over to San Francisco tight ends here. You've got George Kittle at 8,200. Coming back from an injury. He's been out since what week? Like, he's been out for a minute, right? He was week 8 was his last game. That's when he got injured. So 8,200 for George Kittle. You're never going to see him priced this low ever again. Jordan Reed at 4,600. Always a good option. He has such high upside. Only problem is he could stub his toe walking out to the field and his career can be over, or, get a concussion hitting his pillow at night. So 4,600, he's going to be lost in the shuffle, I think. So he's going to be low owned. he could be one of these guys that scores a touchdown in this game, because we just don't know how limited Kittle can be in this game. Ross Dwelly, obviously, at 1,000. There's just so many damn good options on the lower end. I could see Ross Dwelly scoring a touchdown. I could see Jordan Reed scoring a touchdown. A lot of times we don't get that in these showdown slates where these third and fourth string guys, you just can't see them getting any usage. But I think these guys can. So who's your favorite here between Reed and Dwelly? And with George Kittle, I'm pretty ballsy with my exposures a lot of times. Like I just don't care. I'll play. I usually play like 80% or more of a guy in showdown. Like with NFL, that's really risky, obviously. I mean, look at freaking what's his name, Tyler Boyd getting a damn concussion because he hit his head on the damn ground. And I had 100% of him. So like with Kittle, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna go I'm gonna get a lot of Kittle, but I'm not gonna go all in on him because I just don't. It's just such up in the air if he's even going to be targeted a lot in this game. I just don't know. Like, I'm more likely to think that he's going to be used. I just don't know how they're going to use him. Is they going to ease him in? They're going to have Jordan Reed playing most of the snaps? Like, I don't know. What do you think? What are you likely to do with George Kittle here?
I'm just going to go even with the field, I think, when it comes to my exposures. Probably a little bit more than the field. I'm not going to lock him into all my lineups, but an 8,200 George Kittle, I think, is pretty low risk play. I mean, even if he is limited, he is one of the better players in the entire NFL. And I mean, even if he gets you 10.5 points at 8,200, it may not be ideal, but it could be enough to get you there. Excuse me. Now, ownership is going to kind of dictate where I go there. If he all of a sudden starts coming in at 70 to 80%, then I think I will go closer to 50% overall ownership. But I think everybody's going to kind of err on the side of caution when it comes to him, and I think it's going to suppress his ownership a little bit. So I'm going to have a healthy exposure right now, anyhow. But otherwise, if we're looking between Jordan Reed and Ross Dwelly, I'm going to go with Jordan Reed. I know he's a little bit expensive, but again, there is that factor that if Kittle doesn't get all the run that he needs, Jordan Reed does become an interesting play.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that overall performance, right? That it's not terrible, but it's not great either. But I mean, when you're looking for a showdown optimal, these are kind of some of the performances that you might need to get. And if that 24 point does happen, right, then all of a sudden you're in a completely different stratosphere. And then given just the ownership expectation, initially, I would expect him to be under 10% at this point.
Oh yeah.
So if I don't think that he's a terrible guy to take a couple stabs at. Maybe even one lineup just to throw him in there. I don't think it's a bad idea. And again, I this is a team that runs 2 tight end sets, so there is a chance that he's going to be on the field with George Kittle pretty consistently.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's terrible. But I like George Kittle a lot. Like Jordan Reed, probably won't be getting much Dwelly at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I look, Kittle just I love Kittle. He's literally a lock button in any other situation. But to me, I don't want to end my night. I don't want to like absolutely crush like I have in the past. Like I did everything perfect, and then I literally the best player that I was most confident with absolutely sucks, and he doesn't get you anything. So to me, George Kittle I'm right on the fence with. I'd rather actually get more with him at captain to capture that upside that he has, because I think, getting a few lineups with him at captain really opens you up to be different. It just depends on ownership. Like you said, if he comes in at 60+% owned, I might just fade him because there's so much unknown with him. I might just fade him. I mean, look, we could get to a situation where at halftime the Cardinals are leading this game quite a bit. And do they really care about getting him involved in the second to last game when there's only a few quarters left in their season? It's just up in the air to me. So I'm waiting on ownership. That's my answer. Just wait on ownership. All right, so kickers and defense. I don't even think we need to talk about kickers here. You've got Mike Nugent, who's actually a pretty good kicker. He's actually been pretty good for the Cardinals, been pretty consistent. But you're talking about 3,400 for him. There's so much other value. The ceiling is way too low for these kickers. For 100,000 entry tournament, I would rather fade all these kickers. I I mean, look, Robbie Gould's at 3,200. That's one of the lowest kicker prices we've seen in a long time, but there's still better options across the board. So how are you handling kickers here?
I mean, I'll kind of just see where I end up. I don't think I want more than 15% of either guy.
And I think the rest of the field will follow you. I think they're both going to be pretty low owned. But like I said, those optimizers are going to jam them in higher than some of these other dart throws because their median projection is much higher. And a median projection doesn't mean shit in Showdown. Median projection is to compare other players to each other so you figure out who has more of the opportunity. That's pretty much it. So defenses here, we've got the Cardinals at 4,800. I wouldn't actually, I don't hate the Cardinals here. I actually kind of like the Cardinals defense here because you're going against CJ Beathard. The Cardinals have a lot of sack upside. They have a lot of interception upside. Budda Baker can take one to the house at any given time. We're talking about a really dynamic defense here. They also have, the upside of, or the downside of giving up 40 points to a terrible team. That's just how they are. So how do you handle Cardinals defense at 4,800? Seems pretty high priced, and I don't know that we can get any 49ers defense.
Yeah, not interested in Niners defense. Cardinals defense is kind of interesting to me. I think they will have the opportunity. Hey, look, they got 8 sacks and fucking 3 fumble recoveries. That's 11 points, and we've seen that's not necessarily out of their range of outcomes. Add a pick 6 to that, and all of a sudden that you have a minimum of 15, 16 points, which would be optimal. So I think it's worth taking a stab on them in 1 or 2 lineups. I don't think you need to get truly crazy here. So it should be enough points in this game that unless that defense scores a touchdown, you don't need to try and force them into anything. And again, there's just a lot of decently priced players around them. You can pay up $800 and get Chase Edmonds, $200 and get Fitzgerald. Pay down $400, get Dan Arnold, and pay down $1,000, $1,200, and get Jeff Wilson. So it kind of depends on your roster construction and game script how you want to build with the Cardinals defense. But I do think they are in play, and we're taking a couple stabs.
So I don't think we can absolutely avoid talking about 49ers defense. I'm not going to really play much of them, but like if we've learned anything by this year in the NFL, anything can happen in these games. I mean, for a lot of that game, that Pittsburgh versus the Bengals game, the Bengals defense was the optimal captain. It was winning somebody $1 million, like I think in the second or third quarter. I don't remember when it switched, but all I'm saying is just consider the 49ers because look, Kyler Murray can turn the ball over. If you get one scoop and score from their defense, that changes everything, and they could be in the optimal at 3,000. I don't know that I'm going to get more than one lineup with them, though, to be honest. All right, let's move over to our fade of the night here.
What's your name? Tony! Fuck you, Tony!
You're saying fuck you to CJ. Tell me about it.
Yeah, man. Right now, I just don't know how much exposure I'm going to get to the guy. When I was doing kind of my initial builds, it was just difficult paying for him as opposed to some of the other pass catchers here. But as we kind of work through this show, I think I honestly might be leaning a little bit more towards Brandon Ayuk just because of the price difference between those two players.
Yeah.
But he's going to be my placeholder fade right now. But again, just so the audience is aware, I'm going to do my best to come off this. I'm not 100% confident in fading quarterback anymore, especially after some of the games that we've been seeing. So it's going to be a fluid situation. That's where I'm at for right now. I just don't know how consistent this Niners offense is going to be able to be.
Yeah, I don't hate Beathard because his price is okay at $9K. We've seen him have a little bit of upside in the past, a few seasons ago during showdown slates. I just don't think he has that high of an upside, and it all depends on his ownership. If he's like the 5th, 6th highest owned guy, then I kind of like him. Just wait on ownership. For me, I don't really care, too much about ownership here. I feel like Kenyon Drake at his price tag is just he's priced up too much. I hope he comes in low owned because then maybe I can sneak him in a little bit more than the field, but I don't want to get him in like more than 20% of my lineups. I don't think. I just don't like his price tag. I think there's other better players out there to play. And I think that the Cardinals just don't use their running backs as much as they should, even though their rushing attack is, generally speaking, over the past 2 seasons been really efficient and really good. You're splitting carries amongst 3 guys. And Kyler Murray can absolutely steal a couple goal line touchdowns from Kenyon Drake. And this team likes to pass the ball when they're supposed to run it. So a lot of times Kenyon Drake will just be left out. That's just my reasoning behind it. I don't hate Kenyon Drake as a player. I don't hate him at all in this game. I think he can have an okay game. I just think at that price tag, you got to find other players. What do you think about Drake, dude?
Yeah, man, I think it's a solid fade just given this price tag. It's going to be difficult to get where you need to go with him. Again, I'd rather pay for if I'm going to be paying $9,600, may as well just see what I can do to reach up to DeAndre Hopkins. And essentially, you have to choose between Drake or Hop, and that's kind of how I feel about it.
All right, so we're going to move on to our Crown the Rest segment. This is our favorite play this week, or this game, for Draftkings captain position.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Ellie, you're going with George Kittle. Tell me about it.
Yeah, man. George Kittle's a beast. And again, this is all under the presumption that people are going to be kind of leaning towards caution when it comes to playing him. If I fully anticipate his ownership at the captain spot is going to be well under 10% simply because of those injuries. If that's the case, I think he's one of the more viable captains at $8,200. He's going to give you a little bit of flexibility to jam in some of these other guys, but you're not dipping low enough so that you're completely destroying your chances of being an optimal lineup, right? Because the scoring disparity between some of these top-end players in this game should be pretty high. You're going to be risking a lot the cheaper you go at the captain spot. But George Kittle at $8,200 kind of just seems like a dumbass price. Even if he is injured, he should probably be $9,400 minimum just so that you can't do something like this. So that's really my thought process there. I think he's going to give you flexibility to get Hopkins and Kyler Murray. But again, this is probably a build that specifically is fading Beathard. So it'll be interesting, but I think I'm going to like some of the builds that I'm going to be able to get with it.
I think so. I love George Kittle as captain. Like I said before, I think it's a pretty good, interesting option. Maybe I'll have like 3 or 4 lineups with him at captain. For me personally, DeAndre Hopkins is my favorite captain this week, simply because I think his upside is there. His floor is super high, and if my builds go to plan, what I'm probably most likely going to be doing a lot of 4-2s and some 3-3s. The reason why I would say DeAndre Hopkins this week, and typically I wouldn't go with the 15 to 20% owned captain. There's just not a lot of ways to get different, but I think this week you can get different. I think there's a lot of there are a lot of unknowns when it comes to San Francisco, and there's a few unknowns when it comes to the Cardinals. And I think some of these dudes can be under 5% owned and score you a touchdown. So with DeAndre Hopkins and the rest of the value on the slate, I feel comfortable getting him in a captain at that price tag and that ownership that we're anticipating him being, because you're talking about a guy who can be the most likely will be the highest scoring player in this game. I don't think that that's a controversial statement at all. So if you've watched the show, you typically see us going with, like, our Saints game that we went with, the Saints versus, why am I blanking? Who the hell are they playing? The Vikings. Sorry.
Vikings.
Our last video for Christmas, obviously that game hasn't happened yet, but I went with Latavius Murray simply because of pricing. It just depends on the slate, depends on who the other players are, depends on the ownership. In this particular case, DeAndre Hopkins, that's an easy choice for me because I could find ways to be unique in the flex. All right, so let's build a lineup, dude. What do you think?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to open up lineup HQ here.
You want to start with Hop?
Yeah, let's see how it goes with a guy that's that high priced. And I think he will be the second highest owned player. So I think he'll be in the 15 to 20% ownership. So when we're building this lineup, we really got to think about that. Like we're not just plugging in all the best players and or we're not just plugging in Kyler Murray and hitting optimize and see what happens. Although let's do that and see where the chalk might end up. So we got to put Kyler Murray here. Let's just see what this pumps out for us. Coleman, Edmonds, Wilson, Beathard. Yeah, this will be such a highly duplicated lineup. I think maybe Coleman is relatively low owned, but I think this is a highly duped lineup. So we got to get away from that. So let's I think Jeff Wilson is just a free square. I don't think you should overthink it too much. 3.6K, Jeff Wilson. Where do we go from here? Do we want to do a 4-2 here, or can we do a 4-2 with the ownership restrictions that we're gonna have with Hopkins?
I think so. I think we need to call back to one of those wide receivers that we were talking about that should be relatively low owned. I think we throw in Keyshawn Johnson here. He should be under 5%, so he would be a guy you would want to play in a lineup like this.
Love it. So Keyshawn. Now, who's our other San Francisco guy? Do we want to go? Let's see, wide receiver wise, do we want to go Richie James? You know, like where do we go here? We got to go probably medium price, don't we? Like, do we want to get Kittle in this lineup?
I mean, honestly, I think you're fine with Kittle or even CJ Beathard or Beathard or whatever the fuck his name is. I think either are fine. I mean, it gives you a pretty decent amount of salary to work with right here. So, I mean, with Kittle there, you could turn this into a 3-3 and jam in Kendrick Bourne, or you can stay on the 4-2 and get kind of crazy with it and run Christian Kirk.
Yeah, we can't afford Bourne, unfortunately. He's $200 more expensive than we have. But
look, you're 72. I saw that as 78. Sorry,
guys. Here, no, it's okay. Here, let's try. Yeah, what if we put Beathard? Where does that leave us? 6,400.
Chase Edmonds
leaves us with Chase Edmonds. So what does that put? That's a 3-3. No, that's a 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
So Murray, Keyshawn Johnson, and Hopkins in the captain with Edmonds. I fucking like that. And then you got Beathard with Wilson. I think by having Keyshawn Johnson in this lineup, it makes us unique enough. I think this is probably a 10 to 20 dupe lineup, potentially, maybe around 10 just because of Hopkins. It all depends on Beathard's ownership, though. So let's pull out Keyshawn. Let's try this real quick. I want to try Richie James and George Kittle, right? So this will be a 3-3. We have 5,400 remaining. You can go with Larry Fitz. I don't know that I would want to do that. Chase Edmonds is right there. He's at 5,600. Damn, that sucks. Where do we go here, dude? Do you want to go Dan Arnold? We can go Dan Arnold here.
Dan Arnold is very much in play for this kind of lineup.
So look, this is not like these lineups. You know, we're being a little bit more contrarian because we have to be with Hopkins in the captain. But I still feel pretty decent about these lineups. You got Kittle and Arnold in the same lineup. That'll be unique. You got Murray. Is this a? Oh, this is a. Yeah, this is a 3-3. Let's try building with your guy here. Let's try building with Kittle and see if this is a little bit easier for us. So George Kittle. Gotta go Kyler. Gotta go Hop, right?
Absolutely.
Now, should we try to get Brandon Ayuk in this lineup? Or Kendrick Bourne? Like, let's put Ayuk in and see if we can actually do this. So we gotta go with Jeff Wilson here, which we can't. We can't do that. So let's go down to Kendrick Bourne. Don't you think?
Yeah, that works.
And then get Jeff Wilson in. And then leaves us with 2,300. So is that like a? Can we afford one of these tight ends? You can afford Max Williams. Oh, almost could get to Jerick McKinnon there. That would be actually pretty nice.
I kind of like Kyle J in this.
Yeah.
This isn't bad.
Yeah, that's a 4-2 the other way. So this is pretty interesting here. I like this lineup a lot. This is assuming that the 49ers can actually keep this game really close and maybe Murray and Hopkins light it up. What if we go away? Can we go away from Bourne here and get another Cardinals player here in here? So who can we get? We can get Christian Kirk. We can't get Drake. We have 8,500 remaining. Like I don't think we even need Kyle Juszczyk here.
Right.
So let's
So
go
yeah,
with.
Jeff Wilson.
Can we go? How much? How much is? Oh, dude. Tevin Coleman's 600. That sucks. That would be fucking perfect to get Drake in here. All right. What about Edmonds in this lineup? Or where do you want to go? Do you want to go Christian Kirk here?
Let's see. Let's see what's left over if we run Christian Kirk in there.
So that leaves
What
us
does that
with
put us at?
3,100.
3,100.
Sort of in a weird area there. 49ers defense. You can go Richie James.
Richie James is an awful play there.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
pretty
I mean,
spread
that's
out.
not
It's
terrible.
not bad. I mean, you got Murray, Hopkins, and Kirk. That's a solid core. And then you got Kittle at captain with Wilson and Richie James. I actually like this lineup here. Let's try one more. Let's try one more captain here. Is there a middle price guy that we can go with? Christian Kirk. I like that. Let's go with Christian Kirk at captain. Let's put Hop and Murray in. And then let's go with Beathard in this lineup. Let's spread it out. Let's go with Beathard. I like Jeff Wilson again. I don't think you need to get too fancy with Jeff Wilson unless he's 70, 80% owned. So that leaves us with 3,100.
So we're back into the Richie
Back into
James
the same
territory.
Richie James territory. Or Jerick
But
McKinnon.
that's-
You can go with McKinnon here. You can go Wilson, McKinnon, and Beathard. So basically, you're capturing all the rushing attacks, and then you have Beathard for any of your spread out offense from there.
Yeah, I like it. That's interesting.
Or you say F Beathard, and you just go with. Oh, you can't get Ayuk. That sucks. You could leave a lot.
Go
ahead.
Kendrick Bourne and see if we can come off of McKinnon.
Okay, so Kendrick Bourne here with Wilson. It leaves us with 4,700. Wide receiver, possibly. So we're back to Richie James. Dan Arnold. Yeah. There you go. 4-2 stack. We got Kendrick Bourne and Wilson. This is a deep GPP play here. Like, this is deep because you got Kirk at captain. But this is one of these, like, 150,000 entry tournament lineups that could get you something.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so look, the building in this game, like, there's so many options. That's what makes it tough. When there's so many, like, dudes under 4K, it's just tough to it's going to take some time for us to build here. But I like the flexibility. Even with Hopkins in our lineups as captain, we can really find some pretty high upside builds here. So what stuck out to you the most when it came to building? Like, what was your favorite captain there to build with?
I honestly actually kind of like building with DeAndre Hopkins. It seems like the restrictions were fairly tight across all groupings, and if I'm gonna have to play fucking Richie James, I think I'd rather have it DeAndre Hopkins a captain. So that's just one thing that I'll have to keep playing with, and to our audience, it's just something to keep in mind, right? The opportunity cost. If you're getting stuck at the same part that you would with Kyler Murray, a fucking captain or whatever, then maybe that's the way to go. I mean, you might be a little bit more chalky, but playing Keyshawn Johnson with Kyler Murray at captain or Hop at captain, it's a lot safer than doing it with Christian Kirk. So. I don't think it's a terrible thought process, and that's why we do this, so that we can kind of come out with what might be the most optimal way to build while still being unique.
I think more so than ever, you can go with a really chalky captain this week, like a Kyler Murray or Hopkins, and still find ways to be unique. Just a quick tip for you guys: if you're using ownership projections, use the sum product of their ownership, or the product of their ownership, and then multiply that by the amount of entries that you're in your contest, and that'll kind of tell you your projected amount of dupes, just to give you an idea. If you're hand building a few lineups and you really like, but you're kind of curious about, overall how many dupes you're going to end up with, try doing that. It's really important in Showdown to actually know how many dupes you're dealing with, because if you're duped with 100+ people, even if you get first place, you're not going to really profit. I know we talk about that a lot, but that's really important in Showdown to at least consider that when you're building. So Ellie, send us out with any last minute tips here. 4-2 stacks, 3-3 stacks. What's going to be the easiest way to be unique, but also maintaining that probability of actually getting a good lineup?
Yeah, I think 4-2 stacks and 3-3 are specifically going to be the best way to go this week. I think the Niners will come in a little bit more balanced ownership than what we'd usually see on kind of a dog like this. So I think 4-2 probably might be the best way overall. And then just for shits and giggles, I got the final score on this one, 30-17 Cardinals.
30-17, love it. All right, so we appreciate it, guys. We're gonna have another showdown for Saturday night, Miami versus the Raiders. So stay tuned for that. We also have our other matchup, our Christmas Day game that you guys can check out as well. We'll link that at the end card here. So thanks a lot, guys. We really appreciate all the support, and we will see you next time. Thanks a lot.